In 1996, amidst a flood of gaming legends like Resident Evil, Quake, and Pokemon Red and Blue, a small, unlikely game called Diablo emerged from the shadows. Not unlike some of its peers, Diablo dragged players into a world of darkness, terror, and unrelenting challenge. Its origins were a bit as unconventional as the game itself. Born from the ambition of a struggling studio, Condor, which would later become Blizzard North, and the vision of creator David Brevik, who saw potential in reviving the hardcore mechanics of games like Rogue and NetHack. At a time when industry experts dismissed RPGs as dead, Diablo defied expectations. Through a twist of fate, Blizzard Entertainment took a chance on this unusual project and helped shape it into a genre-defining experience for years to come. With mechanics almost abandoned in the final hours of development, a gameplay loop lightly inspired by XCOM, and even character names sourced from fan suggestions, Diablo became a collaborative achievement between creators and its future players. And what started as a niche idea turned into a game that defined an entire genre, capturing the thrill of survival and the eerie allure of the unknown. In this video, we're going to explore how Diablo became the game that pulled players into the dark, by playing through the game, examining its mechanics, its lore, and discussing the haunting legacy that it left behind. Now, onwards to Tristram! Tristram isn't just a town. It's a place that feels haunted, almost frozen in time. My warrior, Wally, arrives with little fanfare and armed with little more than a sword and some grit. Making our way around and talking to the townsfolk doesn't really offer much comfort here either. See, they speak in these hushed, ominous tones, hinting at horrors that lie in wait below the cathedral. However, we do have a few places of note here. There is the town mayor, Deckard Cain, who you can come into and talk about various goings-on as you play through the game, and he will also serve as a magic item identifier when those start popping up later on. We have the blacksmith, Griswold, who you will be talking to the most out of any run in Diablo, as you will always be wanting to get better gear and or selling off your unwanted stuff in order to buy things like potions or upgrades. We then have the apothecary, Pepin, who you will go to quite often to resupply on various types of potions and later on elixirs. Finally, we have the witch, Adria, who is a little bit more niche. If you're playing one of the physical classes, you probably won't see her that much except to sell things. But for the sorcerer class, this will be your go-to versus Griswold. Now, as we get done wandering around the town and exploring, we need to go and start our delving down into the dungeons. And so, we approach the cathedral. But right away at this part, I'm already noticing something odd. See, I played a lot of Diablo when I was a kid, and I had the PlayStation 1 version on disc. And I beat Diablo quite a few times. There was always one constant thing that started the runs off. Right here, there should have been a guy that was bleeding out and gave us some insight into what we could expect in the cathedral. More specifically, a guy that would tell us about the Butcher. And he's not here in the PC version. This is because there are random events in Diablo, and the Butcher and the dying man outside of the cathedral are one such event to be randomized, as I learned. So, now as we pack up the unease that causes, let's dive into the first level of the cathedral, shall we? Now, before we actually dive too deep, it is worth taking a moment here to understand Diablo's mechanics, because this game, well, it doesn't exactly play fair. See, leveling is straightforward but essential as you continue throughout the game. Each level grants experience points to bolster Wally's strength, vitality, and oddly enough, a bit of magic. I know we're playing a warrior, but we'll cover that all in a tiny bit. Combat is brutal and close-ranged. Every swing of the sword a calculated risk. And then there's the exploration. Each step forward is a step into the unknown. And Diablo doesn't exactly hesitate to punish you for being reckless. Now, you do have a map that you can turn on in the game, but it only really fills in as you explore, which does make it very handy when you need to find places you haven't been before. Another big part of a loop through the dungeon is returning to town becomes a sort of ritual, both practical and psychological. It's a chance to regroup, repair your gear, sell off your loot, and just generally take a breath after all of the stress in whatever part of the dungeon you just came from might become too much. And there are many ways to get back to town. You can either backtrack all the way back up through the levels to get back to town, you can find the secret town shortcuts, or, and probably the most used, the Scrolls of Town Portal or the Town Portal spell. See, those become increasingly more important as the game goes on. So, as we've talked about all of this, it's important to note that Diablo at its core is an RPG, and a kind of hefty RPG for its time. Now, there are many different fields that you can specialize into in this game. You can either be a sword and board right in your face, strength-only fighter with tons of HP and defense and strength. You can be someone that uses a bow from a distance. You can be a mage that slings spells everywhere. You can be a combination of any and or all of those in various ways, all depending on how you spend your experience points and what random equipment you find in your dungeon runs. So, with all of that out of the way now, in level 1, and level 1 not being exactly anything special, let's go to level 2, where we are met with our first real challenge. Zombies. Well, they may shuffle slowly, but their attacks sure do hit like a freight train. And at this low level, Wally can't afford many mistakes. See, this is where Diablo teaches its first lessons in strategy that you need to pick up for yourself. The door strategy and kiting. The door strategy is simple but effective. Find a narrow doorway or hallway, stand firm, and let enemies funnel through it one at a time. It's slow, methodical, but it works. Kiting, on the other hand, is a bit riskier. It means leading enemies on a merry chase, taking swipes when you can, and trying to avoid getting swarmed. But kiting can backfire if you accidentally attract more enemies, turning a skirmish into a full-blown disaster. So it's more of a situation-by-situation basis on which one's better. But in my opinion, the door strat is always the one you should use if it's available to you. Now, let's talk about the character again for just a bit. Since spells aren't exclusive to the sorcerer, as we level up, I decide to invest a few points into magic, hoping to find a healing spell sooner or later. See, maybe it's a strange choice for a warrior, but this is Diablo, and we need survivability. See, the way that spells work is you need a certain number in your magic stat to be able to use a spell, or really use any kind of item that has a stat requirement. So magic spells are not locked to just the sorcerer, and if you put a couple of points into magic, Wally can learn a couple of spells, and there's two that we really want to find. We want to find the healing spell just so we can have something in case of emergency, and we also want to find the town portal spell, because not needing to rely on scrolls all the time would be a huge boon in this Dungeon of Banes. But with all of that out of the way, level 1, level 2, nothing major happens in this part of the game, so we're just gonna go ahead and go down to level 3. And level 3 feels different. A darker, more oppressive atmosphere fills the air here. And it's here that I find the entrance to King Leoric's tomb. The undead king of Tristram. Well, he was the king of Tristram, now he's undead, so the undead king of Tristram. You get the point. Guarded by regenerating skeletons that swarm at the slightest provocation, fighting Leoric is like battling a storm. Every swing of his weapons sends shockwaves through our health bar, and all of his little minions can just rebuild themselves as the fight goes on. So my strategy is simple for this one. We try to kite Leoric and just Leoric back to an empty room away from his red-tinged skeleton archers, strike, retreat, and repeat, trying to avoid his minions while chipping away at his health. It's a long, brutal battle this early in the game, but eventually Leoric's bones shatter and his crown falls right onto our head, because we're going to be using this item for a bit. This isn't just a victory at this point. This is our first bit of really decent enchanted gear. And so we have to take a little trip back to town now and get it identified. The way that the gear works, if it's magical, is if you have it identified, you then get all of the benefits. However, if it's not identified, you can't use it. So we have to make a trip all the way back to Deckard Cain, have him identify it, put it on, and now we have a nice, shiny new crown for our loadout. And with that, we head back into level 4. With new gear and grim determination, I press onward to level 4 now. Here we meet Snotspill, a small whining demon who begs for help. He wants us to retrieve his lost item, a signpost. Only it's a setup. The moment that we hand it over, the walls open and enemies swarm us in this very, very small chamber. Thankfully, the door strategy saves me once again here, as only one at a time can answer the fight at the door frame. After the fight, I take the town portal back, and Griswold now has a quest waiting for us. And I figure I might as well help out the blacksmith. It is the least I can do for all of the equipment that he's repaired and is going to repair and going to sell and buy and all of those good things. Besides, who knows, a little extra help might come in handy down at the Catacombs later on. And he is the blacksmith, so his reward should be good, right? And with Snotspill taken care of in Griswold's quest, in our quest book, we descend deeper down to level 5 and we enter the Catacombs. The Catacombs are different, darker, more claustrophobic. The color palette shifts to muted, foreboding tones, as if the dungeon itself is suffocating any light from this level. This level introduces some of my least favorite enemies as well, the Bovine Brethren as I call them, or the Flesh Clan in actuality. They're all skirmishers. They dart in and out with arrows, and they test my patience and drain my health bit by bit. The reason these enemies are so frustrating to me, or really to anyone playing a melee build, is that the moment you hit them, if they're hidden, they will disappear, and you can only hit them one swing at a time until they reappear. Or, in the case of the Flesh Clan, they'll just fire arrows at you in hordes, and then when you get close, they'll all run away like you're hurting them. And so with that, hidden rooms and secrets begin to fill the levels out, adding much more senses of mystery to the levels. And there, in a forgotten corner of level 5, we do end up finding a book of healing, which teaches us the healing spell, which is one of the things that we really wanted and will become very handy later on. While we're here, we also complete Griswold's quest, retrieving his magic rock from an altar, and in return, he gifts us the Empyrean Band, a ring that boosts all of our attributes. It's a small, but valuable advantage at this point in the game. Level 6 is where the real frustration of the run begins. Flesh and Stone Clan archers dart away whenever I close in, making every fight a chase. Even worse, my gear here starts to break. First, my shield. Then, my armor. I end up having to retreat, repair, and return, all because I forgot all the time that the warrior has a skill. And its skill is to be able to repair your equipment in the field at the cost of lowering its overall durability in the long run. Level 7 is almost a relief, however. Quiet, uneventful. I find a book of Town Portal, which makes future trips to town easier now. But then comes level 8, with enemies designed purely to test my patience. Illusion Weavers and Fire Clan archers swarm, retreat, and chip away at my health. This level is maddening. So I press on and just decide to skip the exploration of this level at this time. And we go straight to level 9. It's at this point I'm going to bring it up because it should have been, and you would have seen it already, but every 4 levels is an area. So every time you go from, say, level 4 to level 5, we end up going from the cathedral to the catacombs. And now from level 8 to 9, we go from the catacombs to the caves. And the caves are a nightmare. Illusion Weavers that we met on the floor previous flood the open spaces of level 9. And without doorways or walls to create choke points in these wide open expansive levels now, we're left vulnerable. Every step forward feels like a risk. And after multiple deaths trying to get through to level 9, I end up getting lucky and just stumbled my way into the staircase for level 10, leaving level 9 mostly unexplored at this point in time. It's an escape, but only barely, because for Wally, this descent is becoming more and more desperate with each level. And so, underpowered and unprepared, I enter level 10, where lightning-casting enemies and beefy overlords swarm me almost instantly, testing every ounce of Wally's resilience. But in the chaos, I find a new set of armor that boosts dexterity, allowing Wally to wield new weapons. And it's a much-needed boost, because with his newfound strength and vigor, we cautiously clear the floor by kiting enemies one at a time to us and gaining some level. However, we are seeing the difficulty spike again, and so we decide to backtrack to level 9. And in the process of exploring and trying to clear out the level, we find the items for a few hidden quests, a fungal tome, and Griswold's anvil, as well as a town shortcut for this new area. These small discoveries feel like a bit of a reprieve, and it's a very welcome one because we need to get some experience and a little bit of a breather. We also need to upgrade all of our equipment. So, Griswold, when we get back to town, rewards us with a powerful sword for finding the anvil. We get Griswold's Edge. And with this new weapon, we now return to level 11. Compared to the challenges before, this level is actually manageable. Almost easy. But deep down, I know it's really only the calm before the storm. Descending our way into level 12, this floor is filled with succubi, enemies who retreat while firing from a great distance. Much like my least favorite enemies being the Stone Clan, the Flesh Clan, and the Fire Clan archers. Yet, the succubi are somehow worse, and for a warrior class that doesn't have high magic resistances, they are a nightmare. This level is tedious and frustrating, but I push forward. Then, in level 13, the difficulty spikes even harder. Viper demons and dark knights flood the screen in the hellish levels we are finding ourselves in now, and each battle being a chaotic struggle for our own survival and very small progress. We end up clearing the floor, but we do run into a new issue here. After what feels like endless searching, we can't find the exit for level 13. And so, we backtrack to level 12. We look around for a while, clear out some more enemies, and we still find nothing. It isn't until we go back to level 13 and do another full sweep of the floor that we find a book that blended in with the background that I had missed that opens the doorway to level 14. And level 14 is hell. Like actually. Both in theme and with what is found here. Level 14 is packed with traps and ambushes from both magistrates and droves upon droves of succubi. Magic is a constant being slung through these corridors. And as a warrior that doesn't have a high magic resistance, we end up taking a couple of death screens here because Wally can just not keep up with everything that is happening. And so, in a last-ditch effort, I again have to just rush through and, with healing only, try to find the exit. Not really willing to risk more lives or trying to clear this floor out, just wanting to get to the end. We do end up finding level 14's exit, and we descend down to level 15. Though level 15, well, it's not much better. And it does bring us face to face with Archbishop Lazarus. Archbishop Lazarus. One of the final bosses of the game. Lazarus is also a puzzle boss who teleports constantly. But first, before we talk about the Lazarus boss fight, let's first talk about how you get to the Lazarus boss fight. See, in order to get to the final chamber where Lazarus is, and when you descend into level 15, you will be met with a cutscene showing that you get teleported to some kind of cathedral church or somewhere that Lazarus has taken over for his own nefarious needs, And inside of this place, there are rooms packed with more succubi that you then have to go through and deal with in order to open further rooms than the other chambers. It's a bit of a puzzle sequence to figure out how to unlock the doors while you're dealing with constant magic being thrown your way. When you finally do make it to the final room of this place, you meet Archbishop Lazarus, his two unique succubus bosses, as well as some more archmages, and they all attack you at once. So the best way to fight Lazarus, or the way that I came up with after countless attempts, was to kite to the succubi out of the main room, because they will follow you and deal with them one at a time if you can. After getting their gear or anything they drop, you then head back to the room you take out the archmages, leaving just Lazarus. You have to take apart this fight piece by piece. But once Lazarus is the only one left, he is the most frustrating one to fight, only because of how he moves around. If you approach him and get within a certain distance or strike him with a melee weapon, he will teleport away from you. So you can kind of use this and make him teleport into a corner. And if you stand diagonally in front of him, he will try to teleport, but he will constantly teleport to the same open space. See, if you teleport him against a wall and there is a direct path to the left or the right, up or down from him, he will then teleport away. But if it is a diagonal, he will not. And you can abuse this. This trick also works if you trap him in between stuff in a wall. If something blocks his path left, right, up, or down, depending on the orientation of the wall, Lazarus cannot teleport away from you. And you can corner him that way. And that is what we did. It might be a cheap tactic, but survival is really all that matters, and we survived. He did not. We get Archbishop Lazarus' staff, and we then head back to town to get a bit of a lore drop from Deckard Cain.
Your story is quite grim, my friend. Lazarus will surely burn in hell for his horrific deed. The boy that you describe is not our prince, but I believe that Albrecht may yet be in danger. The symbol of power that you speak of must be a portal in the very heart of the labyrinth. Know this, my friend. The evil that you move against is the Dark Lord of Terror. He is known to mortal men as Diablo. It was he who was imprisoned within the labyrinth many centuries ago, and I fear that he seeks to once again sow chaos in the realm of mankind. You must venture through the portal.
And after we finish talking with Deckard Cain back in town, it is time for our final descent. The big time! We've bested the cathedral, we've made it through the catacombs, we've made it through the caves, relatively unscathed. We even fought our way through hell! But now comes level 16. Diablo. And level 16 is pure chaos. Every room overflows with Death Knights and Archmages. There are 3 sub-chambers on this map that you have to navigate through. Flip a switch to open the 4th and final chamber to Diablo himself, and every room and chamber are packed with these high-tier enemies. And our best tactics with Wally can't keep up with them. The same issue we had on level 14 is presenting itself again on level 16, only to the nth degree. Wally fails again and again, overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of mages and knights. And after hours of grinding, trying to find any advantage, we can't put a dent into level 16. I realize I'm at the end. Wally, my warrior, has failed. The run is dead. But I'm left with questions. This PC version felt a little harder than I remembered. So much more unforgiving than my memories of the PlayStation version. It was missing characters. It had more aggressive enemies, harsher mechanics. It almost felt like a different game. Nostalgia is a funny thing, but Diablo has a way of stripping away any illusions when you play it. And now I'm left wondering just how deep the differences go, and why the darkness of Diablo feels more intense now than it ever did as a child. I knew I couldn't leave it at that, so I went back and we busted out the old PlayStation 1 version of Diablo. We created up Wilbur the Warrior, and we jumped in once again. Starting the PS1 run, the first thing that hits me is a massive wave of nostalgia again. Holding a PlayStation controller, seeing the old pixel sprites, and as we run through an identical but lower fidelity Tristram, there he is, the dying man who warns of the Butcher, missing from the PC run, but forever seared into my memory from my formative years. Right away, the game feels different. See, I didn't start PC gaming until around 2015, and before that I was a PlayStation console kid up until I got my first laptop my senior year of high school, and I played Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Now, the control differences here are staggering to a degree. The PS1's quick keys for potions using the L1 and R1 buttons are a huge quality of life upgrade, as instead of fumbling with a hotbar and needing to restock it, I can just press a button and heal as long as I have potions in my inventory. That's a small change, but a very convenient one. And descending back into the cathedral, soon enough, we find the Butcher's Room. And memories flood back as I enter for the iconic fight. It's as brutal as I remember this early in the game, but in the end, we best the beast and make off with the Butcher's Cleaver. A little later, I stumble into a secret area, the Dark Passageway. This is the area where a village quest to clean up the poisoned water supply is dealt with. The PS1 version already is just packed with familiar moments that I vividly remember, and I just didn't get to pop up in the PC run. And I love it. Levels 3 and 4 bring back familiar quests, though with some PS1 exclusive twists. For us, King Leoric's tomb is notably absent here, but Pepin does give us a quest and gives us a ring for completing it, which does provide a nice bonus that keeps Wilbur's survivability up. Ogden then gives us a quest to retrieve his inn sign, as it seems to have been stolen. And so we take back the sign to Ogden, and then instead of dealing with Snotspill, we just deal with the ambush. We also get the magic rock quest from Griswold again, and we will complete that when we get to the Catacombs. See, I feel a bit more prepared, more relaxed. And Griswold's magic rock quest is a welcome callback, but the real surprises are yet to come. Next, we stumble upon 3 bloodstone artifacts, and they open up a secret chamber that allows us to find Arcane's Valor, a powerful armor that we didn't get in the PC run. And suddenly, Wilbur is much less fragile and much more equipped to face what lies ahead. But back in town at this point, we even start a gear stash next to Griswold's shop. See, we're kind of creating a makeshift armory. That way we can pick up and drop and change equipment out instead of constantly selling things back to Griswold. Just to kind of maybe prepare for things a little bit better in this one. Level 7 is uneventful yet again, but in level 8 we find a wizard and challenge him to a duel, besting him. We don't really get anything we can use from this encounter, but we do get a bit of experience points for it, which is always nice. Levels 7 and 8, not a whole lot of painfulness on the PS1 version here. Levels 9 and 10 bring some of the first real struggles in our PS1 run, as trying to kite spitters into a narrow corridor, we get a wee bit overconfident and are promptly drenched in acid. On the bright side, we find a new weapon, a large, chunky axe that packs a punch and allows us to attack faster with its enchantment. And with this, Wilbur's power level spikes, making him a force to be reckoned with within these halls. Level 11 is crawling with storm riders when we get down here. These are enemies that strike fast and hard and constantly throw lightning bolts with rapid-fire pace. It's a tedious floor, but we push through slowly, and eventually, upon reaching level 12, we take a bit of a detour to complete the big mushroom quest. It's a bit of a long journey with twists and turns, but the reward feels worth it, as this will set us up to do Pepin's quest here in a bit, which will give us a major power bump pretty soon, even if we don't need the things that Adria gives us. Levels 13 and 14 bring a slew of upgrades and achievements for us, and completing Pepin's quest here grants access to elixirs, potions that permanently boost stats. They do cost a fortune though, but the effects are powerful, and we will eventually make Wilbur feel unstoppable, so we need all the elixirs we can get. Lockdonnan's quest appears here as well. It's a side quest that I missed in the PC run, where we meet a faithful and loyal knight of King Leoric, who still has some semblance of sanity, named Lockdonnan, who tasks us with finding a special elixir for him to free him from his current cursitude. And with that, we delve into level 14 and we finally clear out level 14, which is something I couldn't even attempt in the Wally run. And with a newfound surge of confidence, we enter level 15, and it is just the same as before. It is a gauntlet, but with Wilbur's new gear, it's manageable. At this point, he is leagues stronger than Wally ever was, and cuts through most enemies with ease. We retrieve the elixir for Lockdonnan's quest, earning a powerful stat boost and find a new bow that rounds out our arsenal. And, knowing what's coming, I face down Lazarus once again, and the fight goes far smoother than before. With max resistances and powerful gear, Wilbur is prepared for whatever hell throws at him next. And we once again descend to level 16. I realize just how much stronger Wilbur is compared to Wally, and with Lockdonnan's helm, the demon spike coat, and boosted resistances, even the Death Knights here fall in just 2 to 3 hits, and the mage's spells can't really hurt us. Compared to the PC run, this almost feels childish. At level 25 with max resistances, Wilbur is unstoppable, turning what should be a grueling descent into a leisurely stroll through hell. Finally, I reach Diablo, and even he can't keep up with Wilbur's power. With healing potions on hand and maxed out stats, it's almost anticlimactic. Diablo falls, and as he lets out his final guttural scream, I can't help but feel a sense of accomplishment in finally finishing this game. The PS1 version has its ups and downs, certainly, but there are certain design choices that really shine through. The inventory system pauses the game completely, giving me time to think, while the PC's real-time system often led to rushed decisions, and the quick keys for potions also make healing easier and more fluid. Which I understand is more of a preference and not an objective better or worse between the two, but here we are. The PC's constant clicking for interacting with things sometimes interfered with attacking in the middle of combat, but later in the run I did find out that holding shift actually locks your character into place, which kind of solves that issue. The PC's quick save feature is undeniably convenient out of the two, offering nearly instant saves compared to the PS1's load and save times. But again, modern hardware does skew this metric. The enemy balance is roughly similar, but the PS1 seems slightly easier, possibly due to fewer enemies being able to be rendered at one time, as the PC could probably render more on screen. The warrior, though solid on both versions, feels like easy mode once you understand how the game is played, until the final levels, that is, where mages prove very challenging. The sorcerer, though we haven't covered it here, offers a tougher early game experience, but a very powerful end game experience. And the rogue sits somewhere in between. Fragile, yet capable of dealing massive range damage and effectively kiting enemies. So you really have a few playstyles you can pick and choose from here. Finally, the Hellfire expansion on PC adds new classes, items, and areas, boosting the replayability significantly, but sometimes it can skew the game balance with the way the item system works. It's a unique twist that the PS1 version doesn't offer, but it's also not the base experience, so I didn't cover it in this video. And so, after finishing the PS1 run, I realized I can't leave the PC run unfinished. And so, battered and bruised, Wally picked up his sword once more determined to face down Diablo. And with an inventory full of potions from Pepin and a strategy to pick off enemies one by one, I begin the slow, cautious descent into level 16 once again. Every inch forward feels hard-earned, saving after every Death Knight falls or mage felled. We take our time. We enter each chamber slowly, cautiously, drawing every enemy, at least trying to, one at a time, to deal with them and flip each of the 3 levers over the course of multiple hours and many, many trips back to the town to restock. But finally, we make it to Chamber 4. And my idea here was to clear the Death Knights and mages on the perimeter of Diablo's chamber, hoping for a clean fight afterwards. But then, disaster struck. I stepped too close to the chamber, and we prematurely aggroed Diablo. Quickly, I tried to run away around the corner in order to restock on our potions and get all of our gear swapped in and out. But just a split second later, Diablo rounded the corner and pinned Wally against the wall. And suddenly, we were in a desperate fight. Potions ran dry, health dwindled rapidly, but Wally refused to give up. And finally, with one last gambit, Wally striked true, and Diablo falls with a roar. And finally, with both runs of the game complete, and having talked about my experience playing through it, the mechanics, and the comparison between the 2 versions, as well as a small little note on the Hellfire expansion, we finished Diablo. But what happens in Diablo? As you'll see, there's not really any cutscenes or any kind of story beats like a visual novel to help you along and figure out what is going on in the game. And that's because the story of Diablo is told through the inhabitants, through the quests, through the environments, through random books that can spawn within the game randomly. And one major difference between the 2 versions, through the plot reads that are fully voiced audiobook style that you can find on the PlayStation 1 disc. The PC version does not have the library of the audio recordings. So, let me summarize for you the story of Diablo to help pull this whole experience together. The story of Diablo is rooted in an ancient struggle, a brutal war between heaven and hell. At its center stands the small haunted town of Tristram, besieged by demonic forces that surge forth from the ruins of its cathedral. As the player, we descend into this labyrinth of terror, fighting to purge the evil that festers beneath Tristram's foundations. What begins as a descent into darkness becomes a journey into a nightmare of escalating horrors. Each level taking you closer to the heart of the underworld itself. At first, only scattered tomes hint at the true threat lurking below. But with each step deeper into the twisting catacombs, the ominous presence of Diablo, the Lord of Terror himself, grows stronger. He waits at the final level, ensconced in hell's deepest reach, his dark influence poisoning the very earth above him. Centuries ago, Diablo was bound within a soul stone and buried by an ancient order, the Haradrim, who hoped to contain his malevolence forever. But centuries of imprisonment have only fed Diablo's hunger. Slowly, he corrupted the soul stone, bending it to his will and plotting his escape. Diablo's influence extends beyond his prison, twisting the hearts of the living. Archbishop Lazarus, once a trusted holy man, fell to Diablo's corruption, becoming his willing servant. But for the demon to fully manifest in the mortal realm, he needed a vessel, a body to channel his power. First, Diablo attempted to possess King Leoric, Tristram's ruler. With the king's strong will and resistance, Diablo was forced to abandon his efforts, leaving Leoric deranged and broken. Lazarus then seizes Prince Albrecht, Leoric's son, and forces the Soul Stone into the boy's brow, granting Diablo the form that he needs. Twisted and tormented, Albrecht is consumed, and through him, Diablo's influence expands, summoning legions of demons that infest the dungeon and transform Tristram into an outpost of hell. Above ground, King Leoric's madness spirals. In his delusion, he accuses the townfolk of his son's disappearance, executing many of them in a fit of rage. His loyal knights try to stop him, but they are forced to kill him as his mind slips completely into darkness. With his final breath, Leoric curses his knights, binding their souls in unholy servitude. Meanwhile, Lazarus emerges, luring the townspeople into the catacombs with promises of rescuing the prince. Instead, only leading them straight to the monstrous butcher, who slaughters them in a brutal massacre. Lazarus vanishes deeper into the dungeon, leaving Tristram in despair. As Diablo's power grew, the land suffered. Demons emerge from the shadows, lurking in the countryside and preying upon the vulnerable. All the while, Diablo regains his strength, preparing to rejoin his brothers, Baal and Mephisto, should he escape. The mortal realm itself stands on the edge of oblivion, with hell's influence seeping through every crevice and darkening every corner. This is where we come in, the last hope against an ever-encroaching darkness. Battling through the dungeon's 16 layers, we face down hordes of demons and the twisted remnants of Tristram's cursed souls. Along the way, we uncover the secrets of the town's tragedy in ancient tomes, cryptic scrolls, and the words of the few survivors left above ground. Finally, at the game's climax, you confront Diablo in his lair. The final blow reveals Prince Albrecht's broken body beneath the demon's visage. You remove the soul stone from his brow, knowing its power can only be contained by another soul. And so, in an act of desperate heroism, you drive the soul stone into your own forehead, accepting the Lord of Terror's spirit into yourself. But as Diablo's essence courses through you, the scene fades to black. The ending words linger, hauntingly. The soul stone burns with hellfire as an eerie red glow blurs your vision. Fresh blood flows into your eyes, and you begin to hear the tormented whispers of the damned. You have done what you knew must be done. The essence of Diablo is contained. For now. You pray that you have become strong enough to contain the demon and keep him at bay. Although you have been fortified by your quest, you can still feel him clawing his way up from the dark recesses of your soul. Fighting to retain control, your thoughts turn toward the ancient, mystic lands of the Far East. Perhaps there, beyond the desolate waste of Aranok, you will find an answer. Or perhaps, salvation. So, after 2 playthroughs, talking about all of the mechanics, all the differences, and summarizing the plot of the game that is a bit of a search to find, the questions still remain. Was Diablo actually as good as I remembered it? The game has its flaws, certainly. Tedious inventory management, occasionally clunky combat, and absolutely brutal at times difficulty spikes. But it's also a masterclass in atmosphere, a game that turns simplicity into depth and adds layers of strategy onto every step of your descent. The verdict? Diablo is undeniably a classic. From its haunting soundscapes to its dark lore, it's a game that pulls you in and refuses to let go. So, I'll give Diablo a
Stay a while and listen.
out of 10. Because if there's one thing that Diablo taught me, it's that sometimes the best experiences are the ones that linger, that haunt you, and that keep you coming back for more. Friends, if you made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you for watching. Also, if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like and comment down below what your favorite part of Diablo was, or is. Also, in between big uploads like this one, I am active on the live stream side of things, both here and over on Twitch, where we do full playthroughs of games, challenge runs, and speed runs, should any of that pique your interest. As well, we also have a Discord now that you can join if you want, where you can interact, suggest games, challenge runs, or anything else really to do, or just hang out and get all of the notifications for this channel that you are all more than welcome to join. Remember to take care of yourselves, and I'll see all of you again soon.